right, everybody. My name is Amanda Valone, and I want to thank you on behalf of our whole team at Roseborough Travel Agency. Thank you so much for joining us today for this amazing expedition talk. I have an amazing presenter. Kelly from Swan Hellenic is here to talk all things expedition, but not just any expedition. We're going to the Arctic here. So, Kelly, take it away.
Okay, let me share my screen here. So give me 1 second. All right, everyone, let's get started. A journey into the Arctic. I hope you're ready to get cold virtually. I'm really excited to share some great stories with you. I got to go to the Arctic myself to Svalbard in 2023. So a lot of the pictures are my own personal photos taken with just an iPhone in this extraordinary destination. So I'm going to tell you today a little bit about who Swan Hellenic is, because we might be a company you've never heard of. I'm going to talk about what makes the destination of Svalbard so fascinating and why it should be on your radar for your next big bucket list trip. And then what does being on an expedition in Svalbard look like with Swan Hellenic? So we're going to go through what a day looks like typically in Svalbard from when you wake up to when you go to sleep. We'll talk about what's included. And then, of course, I have some specials for you at the end. So, first, Swan Hellenic actually has a 70-year history behind this brand name. We're started by the Swan family in Britain in 1950 as Swan Tours. And in 1954, the Swan family partnered with the Hellenic Society of London to operate their first ever cultural expedition cruise to the Greek archaeology sites. So that's the origin story of where the name comes from. But the name Swan Hellenic for 70 years has really been synonymous with the true exploration of the destination, incredible learning, enrichment, and immersion opportunities, and going off the beaten path. In February 2020, new owners bought the brand Swan Hellenic and revived this iconic brand and came to the North American market really for the first time in a big way. So you might just be learning about us now. One of the first things they did was invest a pretty penny building three state-of-the-art brand new expedition vessels. So Swan Hellenic actually has the youngest fleet of expedition vessels in all of expedition. So that's one thing that we'll talk about here in the presentation as well. So in expedition, there's quite a few different companies that you can go with, but we all have our own little thing that makes us special. And what makes Swan Hellenic so special is that we really marry the adventure of a true down and dirty expedition with five-star service and accommodations, but it's completely unpretentious luxury. Like I said before, the focus really is on the exploration, the learning, and the immersion. The luxury is kind of happening in the background. There's no dress code, there's no formal nights, but you can go eat a Michelin star dinner in your jeans and hiking boots. You're going to be living large even when you're this far away from home. Now, so we're going to talk about like what makes something a true expedition. A lot of it has to do with the size of the ship that you're going to be on and the level of immersion you get because of the size of that ship. And the access to the experts that you get. Those are all things that go into making something a true expedition. Now, today we're going to talk about the Arctic, but I also want to let you know that we go all over the world. So if you need to, alternate years, somewhere cold, somewhere warm, we have you covered. Of course, Antarctica and the Arctic is what we're probably most famous for, but we also do both coasts of South America, including going into the Amazon of Brazil and the Chilean fjords. We go up the entire west coast of Africa. We do New Zealand and Asia and the South Pacific, including Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands, Rajan Pat, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Japan. And we also do destinations throughout Europe, like the Scottish Highlands and Ireland and the British Isles, but from a totally unique perspective, from a small ship expedition lens. So we really have the world covered. Our tagline is see what others don't. So if you're really trying to step up your travel game and do something interesting, we are the company for you. Today, we're going to focus on the Arctic, and specifically Svalbard. Now, when you start going to like places this far away, I don't know if you've ever on your map scrolled all the way up to the Arctic or down to Antarctica, but when you scroll that far, your map on your phone actually turns into a globe, I discovered. But it's interesting to look at the geography of these places at the poles and compare. Some of the differences would be that the Arctic is really an ocean surrounded by land, and Antarctica is land surrounded by the ocean. And when we're talking about the Arctic, we're typically talking about Svalbard, Greenland, and the Northwest Passage, and even parts in Norway and Iceland typically fall into the Arctic area. Svalbard, though, is the star of this presentation, and it's one of the most popular destinations where you can go to see polar bears. I would say that's probably what it's most famous for. And you can see it's a straight shot up from Norway. And you're typically around 500 miles away from the geographic North Pole when you're in Svalbard. So why Svalbard? This is another picture that I took. Most, as I mentioned, most of these are my photos. When you're in a place like Svalbard, you're going into beyond ordinary landscapes that are untouched by humans. This felt like being dropped into a James Bond movie. Like, this is one of my favorite photographs I've ever taken on an iPhone. We got to hike in this entire winter wonderland with huge mountains and just calf deep snow that we hiked in for about a mile, and it was jaw dropping. The air is the cleanest air you could ever breathe, and the sun was shining the bluest skies ever, surrounded by these huge mountain ranges, not another human being in sight. It was spectacular. The beyond ordinary wildlife encounters. The Arctic is teeming with wildlife, from walruses to beluga whales to Arctic foxes to reindeer. This is what makes expedition so special is we never know when we're going to have a wildlife encounter. And the surprise element of expedition, I think, is what makes it so special. This is not planned. Mother Nature dictates the experience that we're going to get to have, and it's magical. The beyond ordinary moments, again, it's the unpredictability. This is actually, if you look at the first zodiac, and that's me in the gray hat, our expedition leader, our zodiac driver, found this channel leading up to the glacier. It was the only opening, as it was all ice in the whole front of the glacier. And he's one of these guys like, let's go down it. So we start driving down this open channel in the ice, and a walrus popped up directly in front of us and started swimming toward us. And we had to reverse out of the channel because that was the only way out to let the walrus get out as well. And I will never forget this moment. We were all losing our minds. But it's these special moments that just stay with you on a trip like this. The beyond ordinary learning in a place like this, there is so much to learn about the flora and the fauna and the ecosystems and climate change that affects these areas. And you get to do that with our expedition team side by side, narrating and bringing this destination to life for you, even out in the field, and then doing full lecture series on the ship. AJ, seen here, is one of our expedition operations managers, and this guy is a true polar explorer. He's the 12th Brit in history to solo ski to both the North and South Poles, and he works for Swan Hellenic. He's so experienced in polar exploration, but also in storytelling and education. He would actually satellite into UK classrooms from the North Pole to help teach kids about the geography and the climate and environment of these places, which is pretty amazing. So you get access in a front row seat to such passionate people that are going to really do these destinations justice on your trip. So let's get started. That's what makes Swan Hellenic or Svalbard special, why you should want to go there. But let's get started on what a day in Svalbard actually looks like with Swan Hellenic. Starting with, this is the view from the plane, from my window seat that I took flying into Longyearbyen. Even before you touch down, you just have this feeling like you're about to land on another planet. It really feels that way because I've never seen mountain ranges like this. It was a sight to be seen, and you really feel like you're on the cusp of something epic. So let's go over some of the logistics on how you get to a place this remote. You actually fly into Copenhagen first. Not so bad, right? Very doable. And then we take it from there. We take care of picking you up from the airport. We even give you a hotel night included in your expedition to Svalbard in Copenhagen. And then we even include the charter flight from Copenhagen to Longyearbyen, which is the main town in Svalbard. So you're all taken care of once you arrive in Copenhagen for us to get you to the Arctic. Now, a little bit about Longyearbyen because I find this type of place so fascinating. It's the northernmost town in the world. There's about 2,500 people living there, and you have to imagine that Svalbard and this area, it's extremely dry. You're basically visiting an Arctic desert, which people quirky laws because it's such an interesting destination. You are not allowed to have any cats as pets because they could kill the birds, which would affect the whole food chain. All of the people who live in Longyearbyen carry a rifle in case they have an encounter with a polar bear. And you're not allowed to lock your car doors in case someone needs to jump into your car to get away from a polar bear. Pretty crazy. Longyearbyen is also home to the World Seed Vault. So, if any parts of the world suffer from catastrophic natural disasters or war, um, this is where the World Seed Vault is that they can use to replant um, lands all over the world, which is quite interesting. And of course, when you're visiting the Arctic and Svalbard, you're going to be dealing with the midnight sun. It doesn't really get dark out. It will be light out till after midnight. There's very few hours of darkness. Mostly it's dusk. So it's another interesting thing to think about when you go to Svalbard. Now, when you get on your Swan Hellenic expedition, there's a few things that happen right off the bat. Of course, we're going to be fitting you with the gear that you need, like your parka. It will be waiting for you in your stateroom. We're going to give you complimentary rubber boots that are going to keep your feet warm and dry. There's so many sizes for you to fit, for you to try on and find your size. And down in base camp, they have us an assortment laid out for you. So you're going to get all your gear in order. And then another thing that you're going to do is bring all the gear that you brought with you, like any of your long johns or base layers and fleeces and gloves and hats. And our team is actually going to vacuum them for any microfibers or seeds that might be stuck to them. It's really important that we don't bring any foreign elements into a remote place like this that could have an impact on the environment. When you get on board, another step that's going to happen before we really get into our adventure is going through safety protocols and how to get on and off a Zodiac. And if you want to kayak, some of the safety kayaking session you would have to attend. And our eco session on how we're going to operate safety and securely for all of our guests and crew in this region. So there's a few different sessions that you're going to attend before the adventure really kicks off, where you're going to get lots of information on how the expedition actually will run. Now, on your first day, when you wake up on board on Swan Hellenic, you have to head to the club lounge to get a coffee and do some wildlife watching. Sometimes you could even bring your binoculars. This is where the self-service espresso machine is. This is where we put out light bites for our early risers. You can get a coffee and a croissant. There's huge panoramic windows so you can see exactly what's happening outside. And if there's any great wildlife happenings, you can run it right out to the deck on the aft. It's right there to get a great picture. It's a very cozy room. The Vega even has this fabulous electric fireplace for some cozy ambiance in this area. Then it will be time to get all your gear on and head out. We just a side note here, we also, of course, have a full breakfast buffet in our main restaurant where you can go eat a full breakfast, any type of a la carte specials as well. But if you don't want to do a whole sit-down breakfast, you can also go to the club lounge for more casual, quick grab and go bites. Then you're going to head to the base camp to get your gear on. Our whole crew is going to be down there making sure your life jacket is on correctly, um, making sure everything is set and ready to go. And there's plenty of space for everyone because in the base camp, every stateroom, you get your own locker to keep all your gear down there. So you don't have to drag it from your stateroom and down there every day. There's going to be a locker for you to keep a lot of the stuff so it's more convenient for you. So you're going to be put into groups, and when your group is called, you're going to get in your zodiac. Before you actually get in the zodiac, down this bay door here on the left-hand side, there's a whole biosecurity area where we have to step in a solution in our rubber boots to clean off the bottoms and make sure that we're not bringing any foreign elements onto Svalbard with us. We always take these precautions in terms of keeping the environment the way that we find it. You can see that there's always going to be crew to help you. And they actually teach you the safest way to get on and off the Zodiac in our sessions before you ever do this. So we're always going to have about 3 crew members helping our guests transfer from the ship down to the Zodiac. I like to show these pictures because I feel like this is the unknown, the scary part about like, how are you going to get on a Zodiac? How scary is it? Listen, it's an adventure because a lot of people, you've never done something like this before. So it is out of your comfort zone, but we do it extremely safely with our well-trained crew, following all of the ACO rules and regulations on how we operate here. And then when we get to land, our expedition team is there waiting to help us. We have steps for you to help get out of the Zodiac on land. Sometimes we could be landing in water. That's why you have the rubber boots. They keep their waterproof and they keep your feet dry. Um, but some of the questions I get a lot is, can I actually do this? And I will say, listen, you do not have to be a professional athlete or mountain climber to go on a trip like this. 80% of our guests are between 50 and 70 years old. I think getting in and out of the Zodiac is probably the hardest part. And as I like to say, no one said you had to look good doing it. We're all dressed in all this crazy gear. Just throw your leg over and get it done with, and have a good time. Now, when we're out in the Zodiacs and on the landing sites, you're going to be with our expedition team who are there driving the Zodiacs and doing hikes with you. They are some of the most passionate people and so magnetic. And they've traveled all over the world. Their stories are insane. These were 3 of our expedition leaders when I was in Svalbard. Jan on the left is a naturalist. He has lived and studied all over the world. This guy was a had so much information to share with us. It's like he knew every single bird we saw. He gave a full presentation on the birds and how they breathe in the Arctic. He knew everything, just a fountain of knowledge and so passionate. Corinne in the middle has been a marine biologist for over 20 years. She also leads a lot of our citizen science programs that you can participate in, where you actually get to help collect data that we send back to partnerships that we have. And then on the right, Oliver, he actually lived in Svalbard. He's one of these crazy people who lives in the northernmost city in the world. And he knew everything about the landscape and the wildlife in this area and the environment and climate change and how it's impacting this part of the world. And all of them are such incredible storytellers and eager to share information and answer your questions. And one of the things I love about Swan Hellenic is when you get back to the ship, these guys are grabbing a beer at the bar. You can have a drink with them and pick their brains and ask them more questions, or even invite them to dinner in the main dining room so you can get to know them on a more personal level, which they're part of the Swan Hellenic family when you're on board. Now, Zodiac cruising is a big component of what you're going to be doing when we're off the ship. And I loved it because, again, you never know what adventure you're going to come across. You could come face to face with a walrus. You could turn a cove and find a glacier. Um, you could find sea ice that's 3,000 year old floating by. And the landscapes surrounding you are just jaw-dropping. That's one of the things that I found really interesting about Svalbard that was kind of surprising to me is the landscapes were different every single day. It changed. The first landing that we did, which is where we get off the Zodiac and go on a hike, was on this rocky beach. And the next day, it was completely different. We hiked across this massive green moss tundra moraine. Now, you don't have to worry about being a professional hiker to go on a trip like this. How our expedition team handled it is the first day we had a short walk and a long walk. So the short walk people, we probably just took a very slow, easy stroll, like 500 meters down that rocky beach, stopping along the way to talk about the flora and fauna with our expedition guide. And then the long group did about a mile and a half. Then at the end of the first day, the expedition team, during our evening briefing, asked for feedback to say they wanted to know if everyone was okay with the lengths and the durations. And they decided we needed a medium group. So typically, moving forward, then we had a short walk group where you would walk about 400 to 500 meters at a very slow pace, a group that did about a mile and a half hike, and then for the really active people who wanted to do the most, there was a 5K hike option. So there really is something for everyone for all different types of fitness and mobility levels. Now, the green moss tundra was so cool because it was a very sunny day. You could see the antlers here from reindeer. We saw whale bones. We saw tons of reindeer. They were everywhere. And in the distance with our binoculars, we could see an Arctic fox curled up in a little ball. But it was a beautiful hike, truly out in nature. On a trip like this, you really do get to disconnect and be so present in the moment, um, taking in all of these views with your senses totally alive. As we continue to move further north, the landscape changed really every day. It started off this way with slightly more dramatic mountains, with more snow. And then when you get up all the way to 80 degrees north, there's sea ice. This is where the sea ice begins, and it runs for 500 miles to the North Pole. And this is quite an important part of the trip because seals live on sea ice and polar bears eat seals. So this is where we're like on the lookout for polar bears. This is where the adventure gets exciting. The scenery here, once you start seeing the ice, you really feel like you're in another planet. Another element that we came across on our landings is actual history. Now, in like the early 1900s, there were quite a few Russian whaling settlements that still the remains of these places exist today. Could you even guess what that bone is on the left-hand side picture? That is the bones of a full whale that we hiked past. Insane. So there is quite a bit of history in terms of whaling settlements and even mining that used to take place. We tracked through some like abandoned quarries, which was quite interesting as well. But this was my favorite day, the day that we got to hike through the snow. It was just extraordinary. I've never gotten to do anything like this in my life. I live in West Palm Beach, a mile from the beach, okay? I am not built for the snow. I did grow up in Michigan, but I have long left that behind me. This was extraordinary. People often ask, like, oh, it's going to be so cold. You're dressed for you're wearing layers and it's not as cold as you think. It's in like the mid 30s. It could even go up to 50 degrees in the summertime in a place like this. And it truly just was, I've never done anything like this in my life. For me, it was the most special day of the expedition. Now, in the morning, you're going to go out and do Zodiac cruises and a landing. Then you're going to come back on board for lunch. Sometimes, if it's a good sunny day and it's not too cold out, we'll actually have a barbecue at the pool bar and grill area. And the team will put on like homemade brats and homemade pizzas and do a mini buffet inside the club lounge. And out here, at the dining area we have around the pool bar and grill area, they actually have heating panels. So our ships really are designed for you to be on the outdoor decks, taking in the beauty of these places that we're sailing through. Now, one of the reasons you want to go with Swan Hellenic is because our ships have less than 200 people on board. And in a place like the Arctic, there's really strict laws and regulations about what ships can do based on their size. And because we have less than 200 people on board, we're actually still permitted to go to Svalbard, and you get to go back out in the afternoon for a second landing. So you're going to get off the ship twice a day, weather permitting, of course, every day for maximum immersion to really take in the environment and be outside exploring this destination. Um, the picture on the right, oh my God, we cruised past this huge piece of sea ice. And one of the amazing things that I learned, because this piece of ice you can see is really blue. The bluer the ice, the older it is. That's like a 3,000-year-old piece of sea ice, which is really hard to wrap your brain around. But you get to learn these extraordinary facts and see them in person. And it's just so hard to believe. And so lucky that we get to do something like this. Now, you can also stay back on board. And even just being on the ship on the outer deck, sailing through a landscape like this is special. I took this picture from the Swan's Nest, which is one of my favorite areas on board of this sea ice that was floating by while we were on the ship. And you could literally see the paw prints of a polar bear that must have been there not that long ago because they were fresh prints. And it's just like seeing something like that. You're like, oh, where is he? What adventure are we gonna see and have today? It's amazing. These were some of the reindeer that we got to see. They're everywhere. One of the things that we learned, just to give you an example of like what you get to learn as far as like the ecosystem in a place like this, because sea ice is melting in Svalbard, polar bears have a harder time getting between the ice. So they're finding that more polar bears in Svalbard are actually coming to land instead of living out on the ice where they normally have in the past. And it's causing them to start eating the reindeer, which historically they've never eaten the reindeer. They've always eaten seals because they need to eat the high fat animals. Sorry if you love animals. But it's impacting the food chain in Svalbard. So it's interesting to learn about the full effects on a unique ecosystem like the one in Svalbard. We did see the King of the Arctic on our third to last day, which was spectacular. Now, some things you have to prepare yourself for on an expedition like this. I did not take this picture with my phone. This was from the professional photographer with a zoom lens, okay? We don't really ever want to be too close to a polar bear. So you have to prepare yourself that you're going to be using binoculars a lot. We are not at the zoo. We are in the wild. We can't order polar bears on demand. So some groups are really lucky. I heard a group saw like 15 polar bears one departure last summer. We saw one polar bear. This was it. I can tell you the rest of the expedition, it was extraordinary. We got to see so many animals, but you do have to prepare yourself for this mindset and to go into this knowing that we can't control where the animals are. But also in general, you have to have a flexible mindset to go on a trip like this because there's no set itinerary per se. Every day could be different. Our team goes where we can have the best experience. If they hear that there's some amazing animals over here, we're going to go there. If the weather is bad where we were planning to go, they make adjustments and we go somewhere else where we can make the most of our day. So you do have to have this flexible mindset to go on an expedition. The polar bear sighting, though, even though it was very far away and we had to use binoculars, it was so exciting. Like It happened around dinner time where the captain came over the PA system into the rooms, which they never do on a trip like this because they don't bother you, to tell us they have in fact spotted a polar bear. If you even saw how many people were sprinting full blast to get outside with their binoculars, it was quite a scene. And they live streamed it into the observation lounge so people could sit inside and watch them track it. And we tracked this bear for about an hour and a half. It was incredible. Now, the observation lounge is another area where you're going to spend your afternoons for lectures, and also in the evenings. And what's great is the observation lounge is like your living room, on board. It's big enough to hold everyone, and our technology features are very advanced because these ships are so new. So we actually have hidden consoles all throughout the observation lounge with flat screen TVs that pop up when it's lecture time. So even if you're not sitting at the front and you're sitting in the back, there's flat screen TVs all over the observation lounge so you can hear and see the lecture no matter where you're sitting. Um, we also live stream the lectures into your stateroom if you want to watch from bed while you're taking a nap, or if you miss one, they're available on demand. The observation lounge I love because it's also panoramic windows everywhere. So if there's any animal sightings, you can still see them from inside the observation lounge. There's my favorite area right outside the observation lounge where we have custom benches built in, where it's kind of protecting you from the wind with heating panels above and blankets. So you can sit outside and get fresh air and with your blanket and be cozy and watch this beautiful landscape go by. The observation lounge also has a bar at the back of the room. So this is where we also hang out and socialize in the evenings. There's very little entertainment on board because this is a very active trip. So typically after dinner, people will just come here and have a cocktail and talk with your friends. And we do have a piano player, or sometimes the expedition team will have like a fun game night, but it is very low key in the evenings. As I mentioned, the Swan's Nest is another area that you could hang out on board, and it's one of my favorites. There's not really any other expedition vessels where you can go straight over the bow of the ship to get in on the action, and literally you could see us parting the sea ice when we're up far north where the sea ice begins. It was amazing. It was hypnotizing, really. We have a science lab on board where we host a lot of our citizen science activities and talks. So there's all sorts of projects that we're involved in. We have partnerships with NASA where you can help document different cloud formations. We have a partnership with Stony Brook University where you can help document different bird species that we see in the Arctic. And we do have different types of scientists on board, different sailings. So that could be hosting all sorts of projects and talks down here, even having to do with their own research sometimes. And then when you're on board in the afternoons, if you have a fitness routine, we have a great fitness center. It's all brand new, very spacious for how small these ships are. And it all comes with a view. I literally was on a spin bike with waterfalls going by in the Norwegian fjords. It's beautiful. And it has everything you need from dumbbells to yoga mats and bands, a treadmill, elliptical, and even a rowing machine. And then in the afternoon, when you're done with your activities, it's time to go in the pool. We have a heated infinity pool on the aft of the ship that they make just as hot as the jacuzzi when we're in the polar regions. So everyone can typically be found here or in the sauna, which is definitely the place to be with panoramic windows again. So even from the sauna, you have a view. And right outside the sauna is the jacuzzi as well. So this is where people are in the late afternoon after the adventures for the day are over, with time before the evening briefing and dinner. We have a full service spa and salon as well. So any type of massage you want to get, if you break a nail on the Zodiac, go get your nails done. You're going to be well taken care of on board Swan Hellenic, no matter how far away from home you are and how off the beaten path. As I mentioned, every evening we'd have an evening briefing. So this is a time where the expedition team heads to the observation lounge. All the guests need to attend because we'll have evening lectures, and the team is going to tell you what the plan is for the following day. Um, so it's kind of some time to share important updates and instructions. And then we head to dinner. There's open seating at dinner, but that's just kind of the natural flow on board from the evening briefing. People typically head to dinner at 7 p.m. Of course, you could stay up in the observation lounge for another cocktail and then head to dinner in a little bit. Dinner is sit down, fine dining, a la carte. The food on board Swan Hellenic is dynamite. Everything is made from scratch, down to the salad dressing, which is not necessarily the bar in our industry. Um, it's delicious. Some of my favorite dishes I've never seen on any other ship or even in a restaurant. I think the first time I went on board, the most surprising dish I had was an appetizer where they basically put a red onion on my plate that they had carved out, and it was filled with onion grind, and it was divine. I don't even want to know how much butter and cream was in that thing. I don't care. I've never seen that anywhere else. All of your drinks are included on Swan Hellenic, so you're going to get wonderful wine pairings and cocktails and beer included even outside of meals in the price. We can accommodate any sort of allergies or dietary requests. The one thing I'll note is that only time we ever have a buffet dinner is on the first night and the last night of your expedition, just because there's a lot of logistics and moving pieces on those days. But every other evening, it's sit down, fine dining, a la carte. But again, we have no dress code. So you can feel comfortable showing up in a nice pair of jeans and a sweater or a nice pair of slacks. You don't have to get too dressed up on a trip like this. Now, to give you some more details on what your home away from home is going to be like, as I mentioned, all of our ships are brand new builds. So they were built in 2021, 2022, and 2023, and they're identical. So no matter which ship you go on, you're going to have the same experience. The Minerva and the Vega are actually completely identical with just 152 guests maximum. So this is a very intimate, small vessel. You're going to get to know all the people that you're traveling with and make new friends from all over the world, but they're all there for the same reason as you. You're curious world explorers. The Diana is just stretched a little longer, so she has a few more staterooms holding up to 192 guests, but all the public spaces, the restaurants, the decor, it's all the same. Now, the staterooms that you're going to come back to finally in the evening after a full day of adventures are truly an oasis of calm. They're so well appointed. It has everything you need from an interactive smart TV with like 100 movies that you can watch for free, even in the Arctic where there's no satellites or TV channels available. There's a mini bar that's included for you. We can stock it however you want with your stateroom attendant, full of Diet Coke or beer or wine, whatever you like. They're always putting snacks like potato chips and M&Ms in your stateroom every day, which are so dangerous. We have a hair dryer for you. All the bathrobes and slippers and toiletries are in your stateroom. Everything's biodegradable, of course. Every stateroom, you have your own Illy espresso coffee making machine and tea kettle. Room service is included in your stateroom. And there's a pair of binoculars in every stateroom, so you don't have to bring those with you. And something to know is we also do have a 24/7 complimentary laundrette on board, so you can also do laundry on board free of charge on your expedition. So, what could your home away from home look like? We have two premium suites on board that are 528 square feet, each with a king size bed, a separate seating area and sleeping area divided by this wonderful electric fireplace, a terrace balcony, a walk-in rain shower, a bathtub, and a walk-in closet. We have a step down to just our regular suites, four of those on board. And one of the things that's great about Swan Hellenic that most other expedition lines don't have is we do have some staterooms that hold up to four people and even some connecting suites, which you don't really normally find on a trip like this. The balconies make up 80% of all of our rooms, and they're a great place to stay on your expedition. They're right over 300 square feet, which is very spacious for a trip like this. And the beds can either be separate or together. So if you want to travel with a friend, you can certainly share a balcony stateroom. There's a separate seating area and a desk and a vanity. And the bathrooms are spacious for this ship size. You have plenty of counter space and shower space. You can certainly turn around in the shower and have plenty of room with your rain shower head as well. And The fan favorite is almost every stateroom on Swan Hellenic on all three ships have an electric fireplace that crackles. So if you see on the right-hand side in the middle of all those cabinets, that's your fireplace. It's cozy, amazing ambiance, especially for the Arctic. And we have more storage in these staterooms than you could ever possibly need. Two large wardrobers and all those cabinets. And our lead-in stateroom, where you could also be staying, is our ocean views. These are 205 square feet and huge panoramic windows, so you can always see what's happening outside here. And even in the ocean views, you have your electric fireplace, which is a wonderful touch. On a trip like this, really everything you need is included, starting with the hotel and airport transfers in Copenhagen, along with the charter flights to Longyearbyen, all your food on board, your accommodations, all your beverages, and your expedition activities. Now, we do offer some additional activities at an additional charge, like kayaking or potentially snowshoeing, depending on the snow levels. You get a parka included as well to keep, and we give you a dry bag backpack to keep as well. It's waterproof. And then, of course, we lend you the rubber boots complimentary to keep your feet warm. And we have things like walking sticks on board that you can use complimentary. Your basic Wi-Fi is included, and all your gratuities are included. The only thing you'll ever spend more money on is if you want to use the spa, the kayaking, or if you want to order from the wine reserve list or some top shelf spirits. But basically, all the big things you need are included for you. Now, I wanted to share some of my own personal tips in case you're planning an expedition to the Arctic with Roseborough Travel with our friends there. Some of the things I learned about going to the Arctic. I was very happy that I invested in a waterproof phone case with a neck strap so I didn't drop my phone in the ocean off the side of a Zodiac, and I got to take pictures quickly without worrying about losing my phone. I wish I had fleece-lined leggings and better waterproof pants because the parka really does keep your upper body warm, but the pants I needed to do a better job on. You have to definitely come with a flexible mindset and be down for the adventure. Packing for a trip like this is all about layers. I went with merino wool base layers, long sleeve shirts, a Patagonia fleece, a hat with insulation to keep your head warm. I got a neck gaiter, waterproof gloves, and wool socks to wear with the rubber boots. You don't need any formal wear or high heels on a trip like this. And let's see, those are my biggest tips for you. And I'll end with the special offer that we have for you. It is opened up beyond the Arctic. So if you're looking at other destinations that you're considering, we have an amazing offer running through the end of February. And almost all destinations around the world are part of it. And right now you can save up to $3,000 per stateroom. You can earn up to $1,000 of onboard credit per stateroom and receive upgraded complimentary Wi-Fi, either gold or platinum, depending on what category you book. The onboard credit also varies depending on what category you book. And to give you an idea, I mean, we have trips to Asia and the South Pacific. We have the Arctic. Almost all of our Arctic sailings are part of this offer. Whether you want to go to Svalbard or the Northwest Passage, if you're looking for something warm weather, Brazil is on there, or even trips to Europe, like in the British Isles or Ireland or Scotland. There's so many options for you to choose from that are part of this promo. You just have to put a deposit down by February 28th. So the deposit would be 20% if it's an ocean view or balcony stateroom, or 30% if it's a suite. And since you attended this webinar, when you book through Roseborough Travel on any of the sailings that are part of the Elevated Expeditions promotion, we'll give you an extra $100 onboard credit per person, only through Roseborough Travel. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope you're ready to go to Svalbard, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
That was incredible. Thank you so much, Kelly. That was so exciting to hear about. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the chat, see if anybody, any questions? We didn't get any questions along the way, so it sounds like you were, pretty informative. I love that you called yourself out about the pants and that you knew about that.
Like my legs were cold. Like I had long johns, but like other people had fleece leggings, and I was like, I need fleece leggings next time.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, we'll open it up for questions. If anybody wants to follow up with us here at Roseborough Travel, our phone lines do turn off on Wednesdays at noon so that we can do things like this, host events, do trainings, that sort of thing. But we will definitely be back in the office tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And plus, if you received an email about this event, you have our email address too. Feel free to reach out. I will tell you, Marissa in our office is one of our specialists with Swan Hellenic. She's traveled on them, she's cruised them. She and I together work on all different kinds of expedition cruises and destinations. So we will be happy to get you either to the Arctic or anywhere else on an Swan Hellenic expedition cruise that you could want to go on. And we do have some other upcoming events later in the year with Swan Hellenic, so we definitely want to take advantage of the deals and promotions that they have now, because we won't get amazing deals and promotions like this necessarily without having these lovely events like our partners, like Kelly has provided us at Swan Hellenic. So we are so excited. Thank you so much. And if no other questions, you guys know where we're at. Thank you so much for joining us. And on behalf of all of Roseborough Travel, we look forward to working with you and helping you plan your next dream vacation.